Hello, everyone. Tulsi Gabbard is getting a lot of flack from the mainstream media, pop culture, for introducing a bill which would protect, I guess, women's sports from trans women, which are biologically men who identify or feel as a woman, whatever that calls me be. So she's getting a lot of flack from Democrats for this being called transphobic, and also getting a lot of praise from conservatives and Republicans for introducing this bill, which would ban trans people from women's sports. And I'm here to say that you're all wrong, all of you. No, really, think about it. As normal, unfortunately, the radical left, which has taken over the Democrat Party, uses cheap insults and cheap crying wolf accusations as a means to make their argument, which really doesn't win any argument. It just makes them look like emotionally unstable, intellectually shallow politicians and activists. You can be against something without being hateful or whatever and still be mistaken. You can have criticism for certain positions of certain trans activists, or you can be against certain positions of pro-gay activists without being anti-gay or being anti-trans. Just in the same manner that the mainstream media most obviously believes you can speak against and criticize widely, scathingly, the United States and Americans in general without being Nazis. Well, the same is true for everything else. But also the conservatives are wrong in this regard. Also, well, not every single one, of course, but those that are speaking about this at the moment, speaking about Tulsi Gabbard's proposed bill, Republicans and conservatives, at least the louder voices, are wrong about this because it is contrary to both constitutional rights and what has traditionally characterized conservatives, most certainly contrary to the libertarian stances, that you would create a federal bill that would prohibit people across the board from doing something. I also am against the idea of trans women playing in sports on an all biologically female team. I think it's unfair. But should it be federally prohibited? That's ridiculous. Why can't we respect people's freedom? Why can't we not be like the radical left, which believes you should force everyone to accept things they don't want? And we can also be against misled Republicans and irrational aspects of certain conservatives that say we should coerce people to ban certain things. Why can't you be not against forcing people to accept and not against forcing people to ban? How about we just respect people's rights? How about we just say that a certain woman's team can decide for itself whether or not they want to include trans women, or a certain male team can decide for itself whether or not it wants to include trans men. If other sports teams don't want to play with them, that's their right. You can make a coalition of all female teams, which include trans women. They can form a coalition and only play among themselves if they want. Or a certain team which doesn't accept trans can choose to agree to play with games that do accept trans people. Things do not have to be black and white. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. And you can agree with something without enforcing it. You can disagree with something without saying that everybody must conform to your disagreement. This is insane. It's one of the things that, yes, mainstream media, pop culture is extremely hypocritical across the board and totally blind to their own hypocrisy. But it's below Republicans and conservatives, libertarians, to stoop to the same level. Don't make the same knee-jerk reaction. Just because the radical left doesn't seem to be willing to acknowledge the science that there are biological differences between men and women, just because they don't seem to accept the science, the radical left doesn't accept the science, pop culture doesn't accept the science that trans men are biologically women and trans women are biologically males, that doesn't mean that we have to be buttholes about it and be crappy to people. That doesn't mean that just because trans men and trans women are biologically a different sex from what they identify with, it doesn't mean that it's just all in their head and they're insane. It doesn't mean that they're just perverts. It doesn't mean that they're all just trying to grab attention. The world is a little more sophisticated than that. Why don't we be a little more sophisticated than that as well? We can disagree with things while also being respectful and able to engage in a constructive conversation, to learn a little bit about other people, to learn a little bit about things we happen to not be so expert in, despite our preconceived self-image of being all-knowing. There is a lot we don't know about. And it would certainly gain more people, more respect, and among individuals. Yeah, we're not going to convince the insane left, but there are plenty of people who are in the middle, undecided, or just a little to the left on certain things, but not in everything. And if we would show a more understanding and sympathetic face to some of these things, without agreeing to every single insane proposition of the left, it would garnish us a little more respect with those who are in the middle, or those who are a little more indecisive. Anyway, that's my rant for the day. Yalla bye.